I'm so super excited that you guys joined me today. I've got a really special guest here with us, and today we are going to be talking about mindfulness. Now, over the last several weeks, as we've all been meeting here for our interesting, honest to goodness, heart to heart chat about what happens next in our state of decluttering and hoarding and minimalizing and kind of processing some of the stuff that we have in our houses, we're talking about honest relationships with ourselves. One of the honest relationships that we need to have, and we've kind of been putting it off because we kind of don't know how to do it, is mindfulness. What does that mean? And what is our interaction with clutter and how is it affecting us? So today I have an expert. She's the author of a book called Bullshit Free Mindfulness. I know, super bold title. And she's going to explain to us what mindfulness means, how we do it, and how it can affect all the little nuances of everything that we do every day. So please help me welcome Aline Ra M.
So excited to be here with you today, Angela.
I'm super excited that you're here as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you got to tell me about your book. This is a bold title, and I want to know, what is it that made you write this book, and what does the title mean?
So the inspiration for me was this understanding of how simple things can be and how we complicate things in our minds. And why I say, I know bullshit free can sound so like, whew, but I was trying to go away from this thing of over talking about things on a theoretical level and just concepts and make it as simple and practical as it can be. Because at the end of the day, it is about how we do things, how we live our lives, and not keep on just overthinking about it. So it was as direct as it could possibly be. So we can just do this minor shifts in our lives can do such huge differences in how we actually experience life every day.
Well, I love what you said about experiencing life instead of just kind of floating aimlessly from day to day. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to this concept of mindfulness and really exploring each moment in the day instead of just drifting aimlessly.
Well, mindfulness at first wasn't exactly what I was focusing on. I work as a spiritual guide and healer and helping people to connect more with themselves. And as I understood, as I started seeing with my clients how we make things complicated unnecessarily, it's just the way that we are wired, even as a society, in this very mental level of have to, must do, need to, always shouting at us. The mind shouts and the heart whispers. Mindfulness, in a way, is coming back to this whisper of the heart that is much simpler. The heart is much more clear than the mind of what it wants or not wants. But sometimes it's quite scary to stay in our hearts. So we stay in that mind that is telling, go to do this, go do that, have to have this, on and on. And it's coming back to the simplicity of being. It doesn't mean not having anything, but it means having more space because the heart is so spacious. And that's where we begin.
I know that for me as a business owner, I can wake up in the middle of the night and just be like, I got all these things going on and my mind is racing. And I get up during the day and I feel like I'm carrying around a backpack of weight. And I have to literally stop before, like if a phone rings and I have to answer the phone, I have to literally stop and say, wait a second. I have to pause and remove this backpack of all this baggage that I'm carrying with me before I start the next conversation. Because I don't want to enter this conversation with everything that's I just brought with me from the last few minutes or the last hour or the last whatever it was into this conversation. How do you address moments like that where people are all caught up in one thing and they're moving, like you said, we're going really fast and we're hurried, where we go from one activity to the next without bringing all that extra baggage from one scenario to the next?
It's creating those small pauses that it can be 10 seconds. It doesn't need to be like a half an hour meditation. The key here is consciousness in the sense of intentionality. Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the point of what we're doing? If I go to meet my friends for dinner, but all I can think about is the date, how stressful it was, and all the problems that I have to solve, then I cannot be together with them. It's not about what we are doing. It is about how we do what we do. So I can be with the people that I love the most, but not really be there.
Mm.
So if I don't have that intention of why am I here? What is the point of being here? Then it's so easy to get caught up. And it is so simple. If we just stop between what we're doing for 10, 15 seconds and ask ourselves, what is the point? Why am I doing this? Then we can come back.
I love that. Okay, so my question is, what is the trigger? What makes us stop for 10 seconds? Because as we're hurried and we're rushed, it's really easy to get caught up in the moment and to not remember to stop. How do we do that?
Yeah, the remembering is the hardest thing. And it is for any habits that we're changing, right? If we want to stop drinking coffee, and then it's like, no, we always have this thing of like, I'm not going to do this. It's hard. Any change is hard. So creating these reminders is no different from creating any other shift in our lives. We need to create some kind of system at first, be it putting reminders in our schedule between two meetings, like brief, like 10 seconds intentionality. It can be having a paper. It can be just a breath. What system will work for you is yours. It depends on what is it that works for you for your own changes in life, whatever change you would like to do. There is no magical recipe here. But what we need to understand is change is not automatic. We do need to create this conscious awareness of what we want to change and how we're going to do it, to the point that it becomes automatic. But at first, it's definitely not. And it requires an intention of putting energy into the shift, for sure.
I love that. I love that. Just the intentionality of stopping for a second and realizing that we have moments that we can enjoy just whatever it is we're doing and the people that we're with. Speaking of the people that we're with, I want to say hi to Patty G. Patty G just jumped in. And I got to tell you this because you may not know, Aline, but Patty joins us frequently and is always full of good momentum and energy and positive vibes. We've got Melanie Parker on here, Melanie Palker. Melanie joins us on a regular basis as well. So I'm super excited that we have folks joining us today. And thank you guys for tuning in. As we clear out our lives with stuff and we change our relationship to stuff, I love the fact that Aline says about being intentional, because at any moment you can ask yourself a question. And I started doing this, and this is my moment of intentionality as I'm getting rid of stuff. When I take stuff off at the end of the day, I do a quick energy check and I ask myself, how was that for you today? Like, did that outfit that you just wear, did it fit really nicely? Or were you like tugging on it? Were you like trying to, adjust it? Did it have a scratchy tag in the back of it? Did it like ride up somewhere where it was like really uncomfortable? Or did it have like an elastic in the waist that was like maybe breaking or not so good? And then my question to myself is, do I really want to keep this one item? And just being consciously aware of that one item. It's kind of being mindfulness in the moment about that item. And the answer is, if it didn't rate like a 9 or a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, I started throwing them away, just like getting rid of them right now. If I didn't really like this item of clothing and yet I wore it for a whole day and it was kind of scratchy or uncomfortable, why am I keeping it? Instead of putting it in the laundry bin, I'm putting it right in either the donation bin or the garbage. I'm just getting rid of it. And I'm starting to be more intentional about the things that I have for this exact very reason. Instead of drifting aimlessly, what if we took a minute and we said, hey, wait a second, I'm going to make a conscious choice because this is my life. I'm going to start living my life moment by moment. And I'm only going to choose the highest version of whatever it is I have. And if I got something that's really uncomfortable and I've outgrown it, or it's out of style and it just doesn't represent the best version of me, I'm letting it go now instead of doing another whole round where it goes through the wash and then it gets hung up for years and what have you.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how you bring this of wanting to be the best version of yourself, because sometimes we are holding things back, both physically, but also within ourselves in terms of habits that do not allow the next version of ourselves to come up because we are so full. How can something new come if we are, full of things? So creating the space within us for the new to come in as well, so that we can shift, so that we can grow.
Jilly Bean, and Jilly shows up often here, so I love seeing you guys here again. Hello and welcome. She says, I like when I do that with socks that might have gotten a hole. It goes in the trash bin, no washing. So I love that as a solution. And when it comes to intentionality, I think that it's really important to have little triggers, little things that when you go past a certain area of your house, maybe you stop and you just say, hey, wait a second. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to enjoy whatever comes next. And it might be, for example, if you're going in to do your morning routine, if you stop right before you enter the bathroom and you just stop and have a moment where you say, wait a second, this is my time. I'm going in to take my shower. I'm going to do my hair. I'm going to do my makeup. I'm going to, brush my teeth, do some mouth rinse or what have you. Like I'm going to celebrate and honor me for a couple minutes. And just before you go in and get caught up in the hurriedness of it all, just go, okay, let's do a reset here. And as you go in, this is kind of like pamper me time, right? Yeah. Even if you don't have a big chunk of the day where you get to enjoy time by yourself, just a few minutes that you spend in the morning could be like a zone just for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also this understanding that we have a choice. That we have a choice, that we can shift how we're doing things. I think it's empowering that we don't have to just continue with that autopilot and just running through and pushing things. Life is not a struggle. Life is challenging. We need challenges to grow, but life does not need to be a struggle. We create the struggle. So releasing that struggle and understanding our choices, it's a great way to move through.
Was there ever a time in your life when you weren't in this Zen state of mind?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have to ask, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've always been into spirituality, but I also had a pretty normal life for a long time. I went to business school. I worked with business development. I had a regular office life. I managed big teams of developers. What brought me to focus even more in my spirituality was suffering. I wasn't happy with how my life was, and I wanted to heal my own suffering, my own rage, my own anxiety, my own inability to sleep well sometimes. I never actually thought that I was going to work as a spiritual guide. For a long time, this was only about my own healing. It just got to a point that for me to keep growing, it was about also supporting people in their own journey of healing their own suffering. Sometimes in spirituality, we talk about things like be ourselves and live our purpose and all these big things that are beautiful. But at the end of the day, many of us in our everyday lives, we are suffering, and all this huge vision seems so far away from what we are actually experiencing in life. And it's okay. We start by taking care of ourselves and understanding where our suffering comes from, and becoming more emotionally intelligent and learning to circulate those things that are stagnant in us and hurting us, so we can create this space to breathe, this space to see clearly, to connect deeply with the ones we love, to understand what we want, what are our intentions. Because when we are so in a rush and always busy and worried in our minds, we forget sometimes what we actually want and care about. And what is the point of a life where we don't even know what we want and just live as life was nothing? And life is so sacred and so precious. We are here to live and to enjoy, and of course have meaningful works and support our loved ones. But life is so much more than just hustle, than just a rat wheel. And it all starts in our own minds. We can say that we live in a world that is busy, but we internalize the busyness ourselves, and we are agents of our lives. We can choose to take a breath. We can choose to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? And if I don't have a good answer of why am I doing what I'm doing, then maybe I should stop doing it. It's creating more self-connection and self-reflection, so we can live life on our terms and create space for ourselves to be. Because when everything is cluttered, be it in our house, be it in our minds, we cannot see anymore our next step from our own hearts and what we want. So creating that spaciousness, a healthy heart is so spacious.
Yeah. Well, I so appreciate you bringing this up, because we've been talking over the last several weeks about some of the stuff that creeps into our lives. And sometimes we get paralyzed because we don't know how to deal with it. And so instead of having a moment and celebrating how we're feeling in that moment, we just become paralyzed and kind of frozen. And we're like, oh no, if I have a truthful conversation with myself about this, I'm going to have to deal with whatever it is. And sometimes it's the loss of a loved one, for example, and we still have their stuff in our home. How do we stop and enjoy that mindful moment instead of just getting paralyzed and frozen and then not knowing what to do and how to cope with that?
Well, some things in life we have no control over. Losing a loved one, it's not something that we can just pretend it's not there, and that we can just, keep jumping as if nothing was there. And it's okay to respect our feelings. It's important to feel. And I'd say that is the main first thing. But feel the real feeling, and not the superficial emotion. And what I say by that is because we are so caught up in our minds, we have all these thoughts that create emotional reactions. So if I'm having a thought about everything I have to do tomorrow, I make this huge list. At first, it was just a thought, I was just planning it. And then it becomes anxiety. I'm having an emotional reaction to a thought. So it still originates in the thought. It's the thought pattern that is the problem. This emotion, this anxiety, it's actually camouflaging a much deeper thing that I'm feeling. That maybe I'm not okay with how I'm living my life. That maybe I'm not organizing myself in a way that actually suits the life that I want to have. And because I don't feel the deep thing, I don't know what is actually going on, and I cannot make the real adjustments to my life. So having all this, sometimes all these anxieties and fears, they're just reaction to things that are not allowing us to see the real thing. And that is the scary part, because the real thing can be very scary for us to face. But if we actually want to create the spaciousness in the life we want, we need to feel, because it's the feeling circulating, feeling that grief, feeling that sorrow, that it will create the space for us to heal. If we don't feel it, it keeps shoving it down and it keeps there, and we never allow that to be processed within us. So I know it is scary, but it requires a lot of self-awareness of what is it that we are actually doing. What is it that we're actually playing with ourselves? That said, we can still have a place of joy regardless of all the things that happen in our lives. We can lose our jobs and be joyful. And what I mean by that is not that joy is not happy. Happy is just also a reaction. Something good happens, and I'm happy because something good happened. Joy doesn't depend on anything. It is about our inner peace, our relationship with ourselves. So I can feel sorrow for something bad that happened, but it still had this inner alignment of I am fine, my life is fine, I will be fine, I will handle this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so much about our inner relationship of not being so reactive to things, and know that we are much stronger than anything that can happen to us.
I love
Yeah.
that. So that's so beautiful. I remember in my house, and there was a time, I shouldn't confess this, but I'm going to confess it anyhow. There's a time of my life that I was very reactive, and I was much younger, but every time something would happen, I would kind of like have this little drama moment where I would just kind of like fall apart. And it's like you stub your toe and then you start dancing around and cussing and stuff because you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And I started saying, wait a second, I'm not in control of what's happening. I'm just reacting. I'm not responding to how I'm feeling. I'm just reacting like,
Yeah.
And so I stopped. I decided it was actually, and it's really interesting because I was actually very dramatic and I cussed like a sailor. Forgive me,
Well,
but
thank you for sharing this. It's big. Yeah.
well, what happened for me, and it was kind of a journey into mindfulness. I there's even a deeper story, but during that time, I had a business partner and things were not going well. And I remember falling apart one day and I just had this huge blowout conniption and I was yelling and screaming and cussing and slamming doors and the whole thing. It was violent of me. And I realized I don't ever want to be like this again. And I didn't know how to tame that. I didn't know how to work with the energy and the emotions that I had. And I didn't have any formal training in this. So this was kind of I want to do something different, but I didn't know what to do. And the turning point for me, oddly enough, I was on vacation and I had stumbled into an aquarium. And the aquarium had all of these displays where there were fish, and fish are kind of calming, if you will. And they had big fish, little fish, and sharks and all kinds of stuff. It was awesome.
Wow.
And as I was touring that, there was this great big glass cage. And there was like this attendant that was standing there very stoic, And I was like, so what goes in this display? Just an empty glass cage. So I asked the attendant, I said, what are you going to put in here? And they said, nothing goes in here. And I said, oh, well, this is a big glass box. And they said, this is a shark-proof cage. And we put photographers inside the shark-proof cage and we lower it into the depths of the ocean. They can sit there with their oxygen tanks and they can photograph sharks. And the sharks can't come within the glass. It can't eat the photographer and the photographer can't hurt the shark. So everyone is safe. And I walked away kind of going like, so there's just this big empty box on display, like how bizarre. But as I left, I got thinking about that every day on my morning run. And as I was out jogging, I was thinking, I need a shark-proof box for myself. I need to encapsulate myself in this little glass cage where I can see what's going on and it doesn't like smack me upside the head and it doesn't affect me. How do I get myself a shark-proof cage? And there isn't really one for people and drama, but I started remembering, and this is kind of my moment into that, help me understand the moment that I'm in. As I knew that there were a couple of triggers that I had. So there were a couple of people in my family that when they would call me, I would kind of go on high red alert, like, rah, here comes a fight, you know? And so I would see the caller ID and I would just say to myself, shark proof. And what that meant is imagine this little invisible glass box that surrounds me and they can't hurt you and you can't hurt them. And so instead of you reacting and getting all upset and yelling and screaming and all these things, what if you were just to watch as if you were a photographer taking pictures and you were observing it instead of it affecting you so much? And so for 1 year, I made this commitment. The year was 1994.
Oh, wow.
I decided for me, I was going to have a no drama year. And I'd never done it before. I didn't know if it was possible, but I said, I'm going to give it a try. I got nothing to lose. Right now, I'm unhappy. I'm angry. I'm reactive. No one likes being around me. I don't like being around myself. I got nothing to lose, right? Yeah. With nothing left to lose, let me give it a try. So I decided for 1 year, I'm not going to get mad for 1 year. And I started, and every time somebody would like push my hot buttons, I was just like, shark proof, shark proof, shark proof. Saying this to myself, like, don't get angry, breathe deeply, don't get angry. And then what happened is, and it was weird because if somebody knows how to hit your hot buttons, they would hit my hot buttons. And then when it didn't work, they would try something else. Like, oh, you didn't get upset. And I know how to make you upset. And that didn't work. I'm going to try something else. And then they would. And then I'm like, shark proof, shark proof, shark proof. And then they would try something else. They would hit me like from 5 or 6 different angles. Just sitting there like watching this like a puppet show, like, you are not going to upset me. You are not going to do that. And I really learned about breathing during that year. And I would just like take these deep breaths and just stay calm, stay centered, you know. And I don't know if I did it the right way or not, but I made it about 9 months before I actually had another knockdown, drag out, blowout.
Wow. Yeah.
I know. I made it a long time, but it was a really interesting series of exercises because it forced me to really look at the moments that were trigger moments for me.
Well, there's so many things in the story you just said. It's like, it's so beautiful in a way, how life can teach us if we're just paying attention, where we get the lessons, you know. It's just, you go somewhere and it has the exact lesson we need. We just need to be there, present, and then we can see it. At the same time, isn't it sad that some people cannot handle happy people? That the fact that you were fine made people wanting to push you a little bit more. And that's what it's part of this work, that we can all be joyful, that there is no scarcity of joy and peace. It is there for everybody, you know?
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because during that year, I asked myself the question, are people intentionally trying to, you know, push my hot buttons, or are they doing it unconsciously?
They're probably doing it unconsciously. And that is a very, very sad thing about human nature, in a way, in the sense that somebody who wants to hurt us is probably very hurt themselves. Mm-hmm. A person who was fine wouldn't want to hurt other people. So sometimes when we see people doing bad things, to have a little bit of compassion, to understand that they are not in a good place. If they were in a good place, they wouldn't do that. So instead of being reactive and creating even more hate, to be able to see that fellow human who is not in a good place, and not make it worse, not even for ourselves, not for them either. We'll just accumulate more anger in the world, you know. That's not the way to solve anything. And it is, even the aquarium that you will bring is such a huge spiritual lesson in a way, because a lot of this work in personal growth is to do with becoming this observer, this understanding that we are not our thoughts. We have thoughts, like we have clothes, we have thoughts. Our thoughts change all the time. We can create new beliefs, change our opinions about things as we talk to people, as we gather knowledge. Our thoughts change. We are not our thoughts. We have thoughts. Same thing with emotions. Our emotions change all the time. We're not our emotions. We're not our desires either. Our desires, again, change all the time. They are like forever inconstant. We're not our desires. And understanding this brings the question of who am I, but also allows us to take a step back and not overreact, to not identify ourselves with our thoughts, to understand that our opinions don't define us, that we all can change, that we are something much deeper and much more eternal than that. And that creates more connection, because opinions actually create separation between us, and anger and yeah, discussions that are completely unnecessary because opinions change. And the same thing with emotions. So understanding that we are not those things actually bring a lot of peace as we connect more to who we truly are.
That's interesting opinions, because I know that during the pandemic, for example, I don't know why, but it seemed like the world became really polarizing, where people are like, hey, I have an opinion and I'm going to force it on you. And I was like, whoa, where's this coming from? How do you take mindfulness in that moment where someone is like coming at you with their opinion
Well,
and let them have that moment, like, hey, this is your God-given right to have this moment. You know, if that's how you believe, that's how you believe, and that's fine. How do you remember that in that moment when you are triggered and you want to get all riled up and go, no, let me tell you how I believe instead?
yeah, I mean, the personal work there is to not create an opinion ourselves. So otherwise, we just start discussion between opinions that are unfounded. And I mean, I don't mean to say that there's no such thing as knowledge. Some people have rights to their opinions because they are actually very informed and very studied opinions. And those opinions we pay attention to. But opinions of people who are just like, I never read about this, I don't know anything. Maybe I just read 10 pages or something and I have an opinion. It's like, I'm not sure if it is worth to start a struggle or a huge argument because of an unfunded opinion. And it comes a little bit with our sense of self-righteousness sometimes, to take ourselves more lightly and understand that sometimes we're not experts, and it's okay. And if I want to be an expert, it's okay. I can study more and become an expert, and it's open. It's an open field. Go and do it, you know. But this self-righteousness, we need to be very careful, because we're creating more separation than actually common good.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because bringing that back to the clutter, that becomes really interesting, where one person in the family is having a decluttering phase and they're getting rid of stuff. And the other person in the family is like, I'm not ready to do that yet. And then them trying to force their opinions and this is what we're doing now. Like, you have to do this because I'm in the decluttering mode, right? And I know for myself that I am, I'm more tidy perhaps than maybe my husband. And although my husband is very OCD in nature, there are things that I don't agree with at all. Like, the house might be totally immaculate, but there will be like an empty water bottle or something in a weird, unusual place in the house. And I can't move it because it brings him good luck or something. So while I would like to have it removed, right? That's my belief. I want to remove that because to me, that's out of place. And to him, it brings good luck. And like you said, letting other people have their opinion and honoring that in other people. I've had to come to the realization, like, let me ask myself right now, is this a deal breaker? Let's see, if my husband, if this is the worst thing he does is he insists on having this water bottle out of place, am I okay with that? I'm like, yeah, I am. Okay, so then don't bring it up and don't make a big issue of it, and don't keep asking him every day, like, why is it still here, and all those things. If I'm going to let that be, let me embrace that, and let him be who he is without it having to affect me, because there are kind of a bunch of these weird little things around the house that don't make any sense. And the commoner would say, wow, that's out of place, let me move it. Okay, it means good luck to him or something weird. I don't know what, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we all have our own paths, you know, and not forcing our path. And like, I might need to declutter right now. That doesn't mean that somebody else needs to. It's just my need, and understanding that and accepting that everybody's on their track, and we don't know what is best for other people. We do not know what is best for other people unless they actually verbalize it and say it, and we know them with the palm of our hands. of course, you might know what's best for your child, but for your partner, it's like, okay, let him have his freedom as well, and this understanding of sovereignty with synergy. That we're sovereign beings and we want specific things for us, but we also live with other people and we need to be synergetic in our ways and come together. And that's part of the work, a connection of doing what we want and living the life we want to live, but also working with other people, living together with our people, creating a life of our own together. This co-creation is super important. Now, that said, we can go even a step deeper if we are very cranky with something our partner is doing and ask ourselves, is this really about the phase? Or is this something else going on in this relationship that I'm not knowing how to articulate, and I'm using the phase to use that energy that is stuck inside of me? Because there's something else that I'm not very conscious about that I should actually pay attention to.
So what's the answer?
We have to ask ourselves, what is it that is actually triggering me? Is this really the phase? Is everything in the relationship fine, or is there something else that I'm not addressing?
Mm-hmm. I know that when we got married, and we got married now 21 years ago, one of the things that I discovered from the very beginning was that if I was going to be in a marriage, for me, it was going to be long-term. It was going to be a long-term relationship. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't always nagging, because I've seen families and I've worked in homes for years where one partner nags the other one continually. And it's really not pleasant for the person that's doing the nagging or the person that's receiving the nagging. And so what I decided for me, that if I'm going into this marriage, we will spend one night a week, and we have our dinner and date night. But before the dinner and date night, and we have fun, we would like to have a quick business meeting, because I wanted to treat our family like an entity that would last forever. And that means making plans and not just kind of like hoping it all falls together, because it never does.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And in that little meeting, we each gave the opportunity, you can change one thing about me this week. If there was one thing that you wanted to bring up that you hoped I'd work on during the week, you only get one thing. And that way we're not nagging all during the week, but during that one time during the week, I know that I get to come forward and say, the way you do this one thing kind of has me on edge, right? And if the other person loves you and they care, they will focus on that one element during the week to try to make your life better. And over the course of a year, there are 52 chances of them trying to repair whatever's going on, right? What I found for myself was that instead of nagging all the time, I was like doing this mental mathematician thing in my head where I was like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this thing? How important is this thing? And if I only get one on Tuesday that I get to bring up, which one am I going to bring up at the meeting, right? So then I can let the other one go, because that's not going to be the focus of this week's little thing that I'm going to bring up, right?
Yeah.
And then instead of it nagging and bothering me, I was like, if that's not my thing, I have to let that go this week. Maybe it will resurface at a later time, but I have to let that go and stop fussing at it, stop thinking about it, stop letting it, making it lose sleep during the night, because I'm still about that thing, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing to even create, having the awareness of creating such meeting. This is mindfulness on its own. It's understanding what is it that you need and coming together consciously, deliberately choosing how to move forward and being present. It has this part that is, both of you coming together for the meeting, but also this moment of you with yourself, understanding what are the priorities, what is it that actually matters or not. And one thing that I love giving my clients is exactly that, asking them to every Sunday have a check-in with themselves. Mm-hmm. What happened this week? What worked this week? What didn't work this week? What am I grateful for this week? What were the highlights? Or what is it that I would like to change for next week? And understanding our responsibility in everything that happens to us, the good stuff and the bad stuff, because we all have some responsibility in everything that happens in our lives. So creating these moments, these briefers, at the end of the day, it's about creating the space for these moments to exist, so that we can come back to ourselves and realign, asking ourselves, okay, this is what's happening now. This was the best moments of the week was this. The not so good moments of this week was that. And based on that, based on the awareness of these events, what I would like to take to next week, what I would like to make better for next week would be this thing or that thing. Or maybe I just would like to have more of these highlights that happened last week. I want more of that. I just want to expand that into my life. So creating moments, milestones in our lives. It can be 20 minutes every Sunday to stop with ourselves and reflect on the week before beginning a new week. So we have moments that we create conscious shifts and awareness to improve our lives. This is extremely important and crucial and helps us so much to become more mindful of our own lives and regain our own power over our lives. Uh, at the end of the day, so much about spaciousness, creating a space for what matters and for what changes. Yeah.
What are your feelings about having these moments of mindfulness while you're out either walking your dog or jogging in the morning or kind of just spending time by yourself?
It works really good for some people, the movement aspect that actually supports because energy is moving instead of being sit and stagnant. For some people, being seated really helps, but for other people, moving is great. So there is no it is quite personal. I prefer sitting, but I know that when I go for a walk, I get great ideas. But it's for me personally, it's not the best moment to reflect. To reflect, I like to be still, but to allow new ideas to come through and new insights to come, moving helps me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing for people to test. If you feel like sitting 15 minutes is like a sacrifice, then try to go for a walk and see if that works better for you. You can make notes on your phone about the insights that you receive so you don't miss them. Yeah.
I know for me, I like the movement because if I sit down, then I fall asleep. I'm like, whoa, I got up too early this morning. I stayed up too late last night. And then I just fall asleep. And I'm like, whoa, forget about the mindfulness. I'll just take a short nap. So is mindfulness, is this like a spiritual technique? Is it linked to religion or is this independent of religious philosophies?
It's completely independent. It is about conscious living, not living in autopilot. That is what mindfulness is. Taking ourselves out of autopilot, becoming present in our everyday lives. So it doesn't have to have any esoteric or spiritual connotation in that sense. Many of the practices that I bring to people is just everyday life things. It's things that we already do, just doing in a different way so we can be more present.
Thank you for sharing that. I know some people have a certain set of beliefs. Like I have to meditate and I have to have my legs crossed and I have to sit in a certain position, or it is linked to religion or whatever. And I love the fact that you're so open about it and saying there are different ways and you have to find a way that works for you. But the reasons for doing it are so profound that it's worth exploring what is that works for you. And
Exactly.
I think it's really, really key because as we change our relationship with stuff, if we've just been amassing items our whole lives without ever really being aware, and along with amassing items, feelings and beliefs and ideas that we've never challenged, that we've never thought about, that we've never actually processed. I know over the last several weeks, many of us have had conversations with ourselves, our partners, our spouses, our kids, our relatives, our parents, our children about how did we get in this situation? And because we're not aware, we just kind of morphed into this weird relationship that may or may not be working. And as we look at the belief systems that we have, some of those ideas may no longer serve us. It may not serve the highest version of ourselves. And so, in being truly authentic and honest with ourselves and having those mindful moments, we get to take a look at, hey, wait a second. I am the creator of my life. I am participating in my life right now instead of letting my life just kind of take over me. And then I feel desperate and frustrated and anxious, and I don't feel like I'm in control or that I have any say in what's happening.
Yes, and I love how you bring this I am the creator of my life, because we are the creators of our life, which implies creativity, our ability to keep creating things. Everything that exists in the world was created by a human, except for nature. Everything else, like the chair, was created in somebody's head and became a physical thing. We're constantly creating things, ideas that become words and things that we express and then we create physically. The thing is, one thing that we don't understand is that sometimes is that to create things, we normally destroy things. And I mean this in a good way. If we want to create a new system, the previous system is going to be replaced. by the new system. So sometimes we focus too much on destruction. We don't like this system or how this thing works. This is no longer working. And we just want to destroy this habit or this thing. But if we focus too much on destruction, we bring this energy that can be quite heavy and not necessarily shift anything because we don't know what we want instead. Now, if you know what you want instead, let's say, I want more joy or more lightness in my mind, or whatever is it that you want, like a decluttered home. If you know what you want, to get to what you want, you will destroy what is already there by default, without even thinking about it, because that's the only way that the new can come. So allowing things to go, to phase out, to transform as we create the life which we want is a natural process. We don't even have to think about stop doing something if we know what we want to do instead. Because if we know what we want to do instead, we can direct our energy towards creation, towards the beauty that we want next. And by default, what was not working will have to go. So if we are very scared, we don't need to necessarily focus on, I want to be less scared. We can focus on be braver, be more loving, because to be braver and more loving, automatically we need to stop being scared without actually necessarily working on the fear, because where attention goes, energy flows. Whatever you put your mind on gets amplified. So if we think about how cluttered everything is, how scared we are, we actually amplify those things. Now, if we focus instead on what we want to create, if we focus on love, on spaciousness, on clearing, on decluttering, we come with a much lighter energy, a creative energy that will shift the other things that we don't want. So it's a way, it's an approach, it's an attitude that we can have in how we handle everyday life. What is it that we want? What is it that we're going towards, instead of focusing on what is not working all the time? Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I just love that. being aware in the moment. I know that for my business, because my business, I don't know, it has me running in all kinds of different directions, and I've got lots of employees that need things, hey, I'm missing this. I need this. And so it's easy to get distracted and to kind of feel like a chicken with your head cut off, running around doing a bunch of stuff. And I like to stop at least, I call them 15-minute breaks, where I like to just stop in little 15-minute chunks and just stop for a second and say, what is going on in the world around me? Am I okay with that? And how is it making me feel right now? And by stopping to say, how is it making me feel? If it's making me feel anxious or stressed, or I'm not happy in this moment, am I the best person that's doing this job? And if I'm not, maybe I can outsource this particular task. But then if I am the person that is doing this job, am I just going through the motions, or do I really love it? And I have to stop sometimes and go, I really love what I'm doing. Okay, I'm the only one around. Like, no one is going to hear me say that. But like, just having these little moments to myself. And it is an awareness that I have a choice. I have a choice of what I could be doing for a living. And I've had days where I'm getting dressed for the day and I'm like, I'm not happy doing this. Why am I doing this? And then I have to stop and ask myself the question, if you're not happy doing this, what would you be happy doing instead? Yeah. And then I stop to think about it. Well, I would do exactly this. Okay, so if this is what you would be doing, if you had your druthers and you could pick and choose, then go back out there and do it again. And this time, enjoy it. Yeah. So it's like a do-over. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I was already doing, but instead of nagging in my head, I'm going to really choose to enjoy it. And I think choosing is the moment where we step from, I'm just kind of drifting aimlessly from day to day, letting life kind of happen, to making a choice. I showed up today because I made a choice, and I'm doing this because I love doing it. And I might not love it every minute of the day, but right now I'm going to choose to love it. And I'm going to find the joy in right now's moment, because I do have a choice. I could have another job somewhere else doing something else. I choose this. This is what I really want to be doing.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it is not possible to love it every single second, but it can have purpose every time. It can have intention every time. We know why we're doing this. And this is also a beautiful way to connect the power of how. We focus too much on what we are doing. It is easy to do a list of 10 things, but not enjoy any of them, because it is not about what we're doing. It is about how we're doing. I might love biking. It's one of my favorite things, but I can very easily get the bike and be focusing on work stuff that I have to do or stuff that is not going right. And there I was doing what I loved the most, but not actually loving it because I wasn't there. Because it is about the how. Am I present? Am I here in the intention of enjoying this bike ride, or am I somewhere else? This is the how. How we do things is key. We can do exactly what we are doing, but in a completely different way, because the how comes from within us. It is our choice, our power to decide, am I here now? Am I really doing this? Am I giving my best? Or am I somewhere else? So it's about giving 100% of ourselves to life, to living. It starts with the how. Yeah.
That is so good. That is so good. Oh, I know we have some questions that have come in, and I want to answer those. Before we answer the questions, I know that you have a 7-day free course that you were giving to our folks. I'm wondering if you'd tell us a little bit about that, and where our listeners can go to get that.
Yes, so this is a free program that I offer, 7 days of mindfulness. It is an email-based program where you receive one mindfulness practice per day and different tips and inspiration for more mindful living. And you can find it on my website, alineram.com/free. You will also find other resources that I have on this page, but on the third one on this page that you find here, below here on the video, alineram.com/free, you will find my 7-day of mindfulness course. So this is a great way for you to get started in a very practical, hands-on and simple way to adjust your life, to bring more of this joy and connection into everyday life, into things that you already do. It's not asking you to do anything new, but bringing a new perspective to things that you already do, so you can bring more joy and connection to your life. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thank you for making that free to our listeners and our viewers, because I know that a whole bunch of people are going to come take a look at this, and also the people that are in the that watch the replay. I do have a couple of minutes, and so if you guys have questions, this is your time to ask your questions. We have a couple of questions that have come in, and I want to honor those because you guys showed up today, and I just love this, and I love the fact that Aline is here to answer some of those questions for us. One of them that came in, and I'll just throw these up on the screen. Dominique says, would be nice if we had a weekly meeting with our stuff? And I love this for the fact that just like we had a weekly meeting, and I was sharing that my husband and I had a weekly meeting. What if we did? What if we did? What would it take to do that? And if we were just to focus consciously, and it might be like every Sunday morning, you just step inside your closet and you have a couple of minutes where you just look around and say, is there anything that really doesn't belong in my life anymore? Have I moved on this week? And maybe there are items around your house that as you walk through, you're like, why is that there? I did this not too long ago. I was taking a load to the every Saturday in our Hoarding World group. We take stuff that we no longer need, use, or want. And I opened a closet and I was storing a bunch of these trinkets. They were like little things that had flower arrangements and whatever in them. And as we had remodeled and renovated our house at different times, they just kind of got pushed in the closet, never to be seen or used again. And I was like, why are those still here? And I asked myself in one of these moments, am I really ever going to take that out and put it again in my house? And the answer was no, I'm done with it. Okay, so why is it still here? And I was like, you know what? I give myself permission to put this in the back of the car, and I'm taking this on today's Saturday donation. Yeah. And so my husband opens the trunk. He's like, whoa, you're giving all our good stuff away. I said, I know, right? Do you want any of this? He's like, I don't know. Are you done with it? I said, I am. And he goes, I am too. I said, awesome. And off it went. So I love that. Thank you so much, Dominique, for bringing that up. Patty G says, I had family meetings when my kids were young to discuss issues and brainstorm solutions. Patty, I just love that. Wow. Then always ended with each person sharing something good they noticed about each person during the week.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. And I love it for the fact that it then has everybody focusing on the goodness in each other instead of nitpicking and nagging. I love that. That's so great. What are your thoughts on that, Aline?
Oh, this is so beautiful. I love how it's wrapped up with just, yeah, saying good things about each other. It has such a positive note and understanding that, I mean, problems are just things that happen in our lives that we can work together for solutions, that we can come together for solutions, and not making life into a problem, right? It's about working together for our improvement and being together and appreciating each other. It's just amazing.
That's awesome. G.S. Thompson said, when I get angry, I stop doing anything. So I'm actually punishing myself and getting myself into a disaster, going into a deep clutter situation. That's deep.
Wow, yeah.
That's really deep.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And so I like the fact that Glenda was able to admit that through having these moments that she's punishing herself.
Yeah.
And why do we do that?
Well, the first step is even having the self-awareness of what we're doing. Most of us do these things that are self-destructive without even realizing. Just the ability to see what we're doing and understanding what is coming from is a huge step into our healing, because then we know what we're dealing with. So a little bit of self-compassion there, and appreciation for where we are in our journey and being able to see where we are. And from there, we can start creating a better environment to shift now that you know what to do, and to catch yourself in these moments, to create space, to take a breath, and maybe not necessarily do something else, but allow yourself to not do anything. Maybe allow yourself to stay there in the emptiness and just with yourself. Yeah.
That can be scary.
Yeah, it is. It is super scary. But it's much easier than we think. Our minds make it scary. Our minds make it harder. But when we step into it, it is not as hard as it looks like.
You know, and it's interesting because I ask myself the question all the time. What happens if? Because like if I stop and I have a moment here and I actually do some self-reflection, what happens then? I mean, like if I'm scared about doing it, like what happens? Like, does the world end? Oh wait, it didn't. Does anyone get hurt? No, they didn't. Okay, so what's keeping me from it? And so I think sometimes it's the unknown. Our fear is the unknown. We don't know
It
what's
is.
going to happen. Like, what if I come into my life here and I share my house with other people and I start making changes? I start getting rid of clutter and I start upgrading my personal life. What happens then? Is my family going to love me any less? I don't know, but I don't think so. And as long as I'm not getting rid of their stuff, I'm just getting rid of my stuff. Like, what happens? Yeah, it's weird to change the chemistry of everything in your house and say, hey, we're doing something new here. But I know in my house, what I did was I just took this box and I put it next to our stairway at the top of the stairs. And every time I was done with something that could be donated, it went in the box. And I'd see people come through and they're like picking stuff out of the box. If it meant something to them, you're welcome to have it. I'm done with it. And then people start adding their own stuff in the box. Like, I guess this is what we're doing now. Yeah. And so without even having a conversation, it wasn't forcing anything on anyone, but I was like, you know what? I need to change for my own reasons. And so if I'm changing only myself and nothing bad happens and no one gets hurt, I'm going to give myself permission to do that.
Yeah, and I feel much of this fear that we feel as well is just the way we humans are still wired, as if we are living in caves still, like we are wired for things to actually kill us, and our bodies doesn't know the difference that many things will not kill us, and it creates this huge stress levels in our bodies. Actually, there's a very simple technique for when we catch ourselves in these moments of fear and stress, which is a breathing exercise. If you breathe, say, for the count of 5, hold your breath for 5 and breathe out for 5, and repeat that. So it's a pyramid, a triangle here. Breathe in 5 counts, hold for 5 counts, and breathe out for 5 counts, and repeat this for at least 5-10 times like this. This actually calms down the nervous system, because when we are stressed, we breathe very fast and shallow. If you're allowed to breathe deep and also hold your breath, this is signaling to your body that there's nothing to be afraid of, because when you were scared, it would never breathe like that. So you're kind of playing in your own nervous system and your body with that breath, and this will calm you down and allow you to bring you back to more stillness in the present moment and release from anger and stress. You have to catch yourself very fast. You see stress is coming, do this breath, and we will communicate to your body that there's nothing to be afraid of. So breathing in, count of 5, hold your breath, count of 5, and breathe out for 5. Then again, breathing in for 5, hold your breath, and breathing out. So this is a simple and extremely effective way to play our bodies in a way.
I was just practicing this, and now I feel the state of Zen. I feel very calm.
Nice.
Ren said, I recently read that it's not what happens to us that causes our pain, anxiety, etc., but rather just how we react to these things. I'm trying to be aware to do that, but sometimes it's so hard.
This sentence is very true. We're not what happens to us. We are what we make of what happens to us, and how we react to things. So we may have a thought, and the thought itself is neutral, but then we have an emotional reaction to it. We think that this is a bad thought. We start judging ourselves, or start getting anxious or scared of our thought. And the thought itself was not emotional, but the reaction to it, we feel in our bones, and we start having this reaction, and we cannot control it. So it is a huge key in connecting to ourselves to understand that we're not our thoughts and that we're not our emotions, because the reactions come from our thoughts and emotions. So the trick here is to understand more of who you are beyond emotions and thoughts. And an exercise to this is actually to train not to create opinions. I know it's hard, but the more we understand that opinions are not us and they're creating separation between us and other people, we come more to this place of, I don't know. I don't need to be arrogant, no self-righteousness. There are things I don't know, and it's okay to say I don't know. Maybe be curious to study more to actually know, to form informed opinion. But we release so much of judgments and of our mental rigidity by understanding that we don't know everything and being fine with that. Because the more we can release from having opinions all the time, the more we can release from having emotional reactions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and speaking of
it's humbling. Sorry.
Well, speaking of emotional reactions, Julie Bean said, how did you accomplish that, Angela? Was it a matter of making new habits, being purposeful about forcing yourself to rethink your reactions? And I think this goes back to the earlier conversation where I went for 1 year without getting angry. And to answer that question, I was so volatile at that particular time of my life, not having the resources or not having the skill set to try to manage my own emotions, that what I did was I wore a heart monitor. And when I set my heart monitor on a low setting, so that every single time I would start getting angry and my heart would start beating really fast, like, oh no, my blood is boiling right now and I'm getting really agitated, it would set off an alarm. And by setting off that alarm, that was my trigger, like, okay, wind down. Like it's an audible reminder that I need to calm down, because right now I'm physically having a reaction. And I remember going 9 months. And then it's really weird because our bodies are wired a certain way, right? And one thing that I didn't know about myself was I didn't know that there's something in my body that was, I don't know, it liked the drama. I was like addicted to the drama. It was kind of the normal for me, that was where I was in my life. And I remember waking up one day and I wanted to fight with someone. I shouldn't tell you this story. I didn't have anyone to fight with and there was nothing to fight about. But I just physically wanted to just like at somebody. And I remember saying to myself, and I guess it was a moment of awareness, like, okay, I'm feeling like I've been going for a very long time without, I'm having a withdrawal. I need a drama fix. And I mean, I hate to admit this, but I was helpless. I was like, okay, there's no one to fight with. All of my relationships are intact. And while I should be joyous and happy about that, I'm feeling like I just really want to fight with someone. And so the movie Independence Day had just come out, and I had seen a trailer for it. And it was like fire and brimstone and the world was blowing up. And I was like, I wonder if I go to the movie, if I can get my drama fix without having to fight and live that out in my own life. And I wasn't a movie going person, but I went and I spent all the money and I bought the ticket and I sat there in the theater and I just watched with the big eyes. And the world blew apart. It was fire and brimstone and it was just fantastical. And I got up out of the theater and I was like, wow, for $5. And this is back in the days, for $5. I was like, for $5, I was able to get my fix and then leave the theater. And I didn't have to fight with anyone. I didn't have any relationships I had to repair. I didn't say anything then that I was embarrassed about or I had to take back or ask for forgiveness for. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I just found a substitute for all this weird chaotic drama that's in my life. But it made me do a deeper dive into why did I have a drama addiction? Why was I feeling like I needed that woo, in my life? And was I okay? And what I call it, the boring life. The boring life. Am I okay to just be boring and go day by day with not fighting with anybody? And I gave myself permission. I'm like, you know what? I just checked. I'm okay being the boring person. I'm okay. I don't need to fight with people. And so when people come at me and they're like, we're going to fight. I'm like, no, we're not. No, we're sure not.
Yeah. Sometimes we're so full of energy that we forget what we're fighting for, right? I prefer fighting for love and joy and not fighting for creating even more chaos in the world. And,
well, I discovered when I stopped fighting and I stopped just reacting like everything and putting out all these little fires, but that really having a choice. I discovered the creativity started to flow a lot quicker. And I discovered that my decision-making was a lot quicker. I was a lot easier to say, I don't need this in my life. That's not a good representation of where I am right now. And I became clearer on my own thought process and clearer on the types of people that I wanted to hang out with just from an energetic standpoint,
Yeah. I mean, exercise can be a great way for some people as well to just go for a run or actually punch a bag to allow that energy to flow so it doesn't hurt us. But emotional intelligence is it's crucial as well for us to understand what our rage wants to tell us, because it's not about reacting to the rage. It's about understanding what the rage is telling us. What is it? Maybe it's something that we care about so much that we are angry because we saw something that was so important for us that somebody else just destroyed it in front of us. It doesn't mean for us to react on that rage, but it's showing us what we care about. So it's where we put our attention to. So there are so many ways to handle our energies in more constructive ways to do what is good instead of allowing the energy to run us. Because if we're not our emotions, we cannot allow our emotions to control us. We are in control. So it's
Well, I hate that our time is up. I've had so much fun joining you here today, and then everybody that's joined in. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Aline, tell everybody where they can go to get your book and what they're going to find in your book, because this is really a dynamite piece of information that you guys will want to keep in your reference library. Tell us about that.
My book, you find it on Amazon. It's called Bullshit-Free Mindfulness. You can also go to mybook.to/bullshit-free-mindful, and you will find all the options there to get the book. That's probably the easiest way. There you get 50 different mindfulness practices that you can put into action in your everyday life without meditation, without needing to add anything. It's about new perspectives, new ways of doing what you already do, so you can live your life every day more connected and more joyful. You can find everything more on my website as well, alineram.com. And it was such a pleasure to be with you here today, Angela. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everybody, for coming and sending your comments here. It was a delight.
This was so awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Thanks again. And you guys have a great week.